Welcome, everyone. We're very pleased to have you today at this webinar. And we want to say we hope it's going to be a worthwhile 90 minutes at this ACTEA webinar series. And today's presentation is entitled Female Leadership in Higher Education. And many of us here work in this higher education space, so we're very keen to get some new perspective on the issue. This afternoon, we also want to especially welcome our speaker, Dr. Damaris Parsitau. She is a very accomplished academic, and we're very pleased that she could give us some of her time. She actually has her own Wikipedia page, so you know that she has arrived. She's Kenyan and now working in the USA, and she's best known for her work on religion, gender, and society with a focus on Pentecostal Christianity. She's also currently the director of the Nagel Institute for the Study of World Christianity at Calvin University in Grand Rapids, Michigan, in the US. And she's also the first African woman to have this position. She also is the first African woman president of the African Association for the Study of Religion and its Diaspora, commonly known as AASR. She is also in South Africa part of a group of social justice scholars at the Desmond Tutu Center for Religion and Social Justice at the University of the Western Cape. She also happens to be a research fellow at UNISA. I forgot to mention, my name is Marilyn Naidu, and I'm also from UNISA. So this topic on female leadership in higher education is a very interesting one, and women are now found in many various academic roles, and in different contexts, cultural and regional settings, it does influence the experiences that women can have. And there are also many obstacles that women face in achieving leadership positions, such as gender bias, such as work-life balance issues. We also had a webinar a few months ago on that, and the lack of mentorship. So in this 90-minute presentation, we will hear from Dr. Damaris. She'll share from her personal journey of being in various leadership positions in higher education on the continent as well as now in the US. And we will then break out in a small group discussion, and Dr. Damaris has given us some questions to reflect on and some discussion points on how we can develop inner spiritual resources to rise to our full potential in higher education. And then when we come back, we will have a time of question and answers. So I want to say welcome very much, Dr. Damaris, and we look forward to what you've got to share with us this morning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, Marilyn. It's good to see everyone. Thank you all for this kind invitation. I honor every person that has joined this webinar, and I honor Verena for inviting me to do this. When I see such a large group of women coming to listen today, I know that we have a lot of work ahead of us. But I also know what has gone to each one of you being here today. And when Verena asked me a long time ago to do this, I kept postponing because it's I'm experiencing the same problems that I'm going to talk about today. Mainly, navigating my two worlds. Now I'm Kenyan, I live in America, I'm leading an extremely busy institute, a grant-making institution. And just 2 months ago, my assistant resigned. So I'm running 2 offices, two very heavy administrative positions. So it's not been easy to do that, but I'm so grateful for this time that we can, have an opportunity to speak about issues that really matter to us. When I was asked to speak about women in higher education, I thought, oh, geez, it will take me a year to cover this. And I thought maybe I could share my story because stories are a powerful medium for just explaining. It just makes some of the things that we go through so easy to tell through a story. My story is not an extraordinary one because it's a story of every woman, but I think it's compelling because each one of us can pick something out of that. So today I want to share my journey with you and tell you my story and the lesson I picked, the lessons I learned and unlearned and apply accordingly. And I also use my personal journey and experiences to draw lessons in leadership, which is also supported by evidence-based research, and have been in the space for evidence-based research. I worked at the Brookings Institution in Washington, D.C. I hold a title, a Kidna Global Scholar in Girls Education. And so I learned policy research. And so I like to cite data because data is very compelling. It tells a broader picture. But I will also draw lessons from across the world as I see and interpret it. As Marilyn has said, I have held many leadership and administrative positions. Just before I came here, I was the country director of the British Institute in East Africa, which was a very interesting stint. I was there for 1 year. And I packed lessons in leadership and administration that I'll be able to share. My personal story is compelling not because it's extraordinary, but because it's the story of many women in higher education. Our circumstances and family backgrounds may be different, but we all face similar challenges, particularly in the African continent in higher education. So you see, I grew up in rural Kenya among the pastoralist Maasai in southern Kenya. And, I think Maasai, Kenya and Tanzania share borders. So sometimes we don't know who we are exactly because we have relatives across the border, like many people. My parents were Presbyterians who had many heads of cattle. I tell this story and people think, oh, she came from a very wealthy family. Nope. The main livelihood of my family was cattle raising. So when I was growing up, my father had up to 2,000 heads of cows, and it traumatized me. As a Maasai, to see so many cows like that, it's still just so real in my mind that when the cows used to come home, I used to run away under the bed because even though they would not come close to the house, I felt they would trample me. So that was my background. I went to school in my village where girls' education was not the norm. In fact, I think it's a misnomer for me to stand in Maasai land because it's like the sort of like celebrity status, because in my own village, I was the first to finish secondary school. One came after me, and it was not until probably 10 years ago that now we have Maasai girls finishing university and registering for master's and PhD. I am the first woman from my constituency to earn a PhD, and my graduation was attended by governors, cabinet secretaries, members of parliament, clergy, civil society, and women groups, because it was the first of its kind in my constituency, and I am the second PhD from my entire county. I have drawn a lot of lessons from that journey and from the many experiences that I have accumulated across the world. So I have been a recipient of many women's leadership training, both locally and internationally. I have also served in senior university management and chaired various committees and boards. I've also led local and global research institutes, non-profits organizations, civil society organizations, foundations, boards, and community-based organizations. And I have trained many women and youth on leadership development, and I serve as a mentor to many people, especially my students, both past and present, women and girls, especially from the Maasai counties, but across the world generally. But some of my best leadership lessons ever that I ever learned or gained or unlearned were from my own leadership experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly. I also learned many soft skills that only the School of Life can teach you, including soft skills such as, building resilience, leading with empathy and compassion, being my authentic self, patience and humility, listening intuitively, including hearing what is not said in the room, and seeing things that people are thinking. Being my authentic self. I am a very authentic person. I don't have hang-ups. What you see is what you get. Honesty and leading with integrity, fairness, and justice. I'm a social justice activist, and this has always informed my leadership journey. And also recognizing my many strengths, but also many flaws because I have them. And those are some of the leaderships that, nobody teaches you. You learn through the School of Life. I also learned at the hard way to just collaborate, to be a very collaborative person. I learned the art of negotiations, give and take, conflict resolution, building consensus, building community and networks, and investing in myself so I can serve others. And of course, paving the ways. Some of these soft skills are inbuilt. You cannot teach people compassion. You cannot teach people empathy. You cannot teach people kindness. Some of them are innate based on your personality, how God created you. But there are those things that you can engender and make decisions that I'm going to be a more acceptable person, a more less conflictual person, a more negotiator, more collaborative person. And in our line of work, that's what keeps us going. Academia especially academia for women, is an extremely collaborative space. If you don't collaborate and become a lone scholar, it's you will succeed somehow. But academia, by its very nature, demands that we are more open to collaboration, to networkings, because we really depend on each other for us to be able to not just rise through the ranks, but also to be able to acquire some of the best practices in academia. So that's my background, and I'll keep referring to my personal experiences as I also color them with some of the evidence-based research. So the discourse around gender disparity in higher women's leadership in women's leadership in higher education institutions have been debated for a very long time. And I want to say something. I didn't go to bog my mind with all these definitions it's a very general conversation based on my personal journey. So I won't be able to cite every data that is out there because I think we know, but I'll highlight just some of the most important. And I would draw from the African continent and a bit from the US. So this is, the case, even though progress is evident and multiple policy initiatives have been implemented in several nations, including my own country that has one of the most liberative constitution when it started. Right now, I don't know where we are, but I think it's a great constitution. I think was able to shove off a lot of women in leadership positions, and we are seeing a sort of a rollback in that area. But the latest 2024 report by Times Higher Education highlights that women now head 50 of the world top 200 universities. That's 25% for the first time ever, with an increase of 2 female leaders from last year, representing a 79% increase since 2025. However, notwithstanding this progress, gender parity remains elusive, as 14 out of 27 countries with top 200 universities have no female leaders in higher education. And those are statistics for some of the developed parts of the world. Women are also underrepresented in higher education leaderships across the world, with the gender gap in Africa being ever or even more pronounced. Women remain underrepresented in higher education leadership across sub-Saharan Africa, including countries like Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa. Here is an overview of available data. Across sub-Saharan Africa, 2.5% of vice chancellors are women and 5% of CEOs are women. Women make up 43% of those who receive tertiary education, but hold 28% of formal sectors jobs, according to McKinsey Global Institute in 2019. Only 24% of academic staff in tertiary education across sub-Saharan Africa are female, according to UNESCO. When it comes to women vice chancellors or presidents, as they call them in America, the gender gap at the level of the vice chancellor, the executive head of the university, is striking and is replicated at each leadership level. Women represent only 13% of vice chancellors. Half the universities had fewer than 50% women in the executive teams, and half had fewer than 30% female deans, according to data for 16 universities in South Africa, Ghana, and Rwanda. In Ghana and Nigeria, only 8% of professors at public universities are women, according to African Association for Universities 2019 report. In Nigeria, the situation is similar, with only 17% of principal officers at universities being female. In Kenya, women remain significantly underrepresented in higher education leadership positions in Kenya. While exact percentages are not readily available, studies indicate that despite constitutional and policy efforts to promote gender equality, equitable opportunities for women to advance into senior level management in Kenyan universities are still lacking. And this underrepresentation reflects broader gender disparities in leadership roles within the country's higher education sectors. While specific percentages of women in higher education leadership are not provided in the available sources, the literacy rate among women is 80.2% compared to 89% for men. Let me give an example. I have worked in local universities in Kenya. I worked in one university for over almost 30 years. And it wasn't until 10 years ago, not even 10 years, about 2017, when was that? 2017, less than 7 years ago, probably, or I'm lost with my mathematics. We hadn't had a single dean out of how many, 14 faculties? There had never been a single female dean. And you know that for women to attain the ladder all the way to the vice chancellor, it starts with chairs of departments and deans, and then or directors, and then deputy vice chancellors, or whatever dockets, and then it goes higher up. So if women are not appointed as deans or elected as deans. Actually, if I remember correctly, there were 2 women elected deans recently, because there was nobody who was a senior lecturer in the departments. So the vice chancellor had to do that. But when it comes to women fighting for deanship, it becomes very difficult, because the truth of the matter is most of your colleagues would be men, and they would prefer to have a female dean. So when I served as the director of the Gender Institute at Egerton University, one of the things I did was to train women in leadership. And I do recall the vice chancellor asking me, the former vice chancellor asking me, why aren't men electing women? Is there a problem with the Gender Institute? I said, no, this is structural. There's nothing about the Gender Institute. But I took that as a challenge, and I started training women on leadership, and how to campaign, how to put yourself out there, the confidence and that sort of thing. And I ran a couple of leadership training for about 2.5 years. Then I stopped. But that had a transformative impact immediately. Within 6 months, we had the first dean at the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. And then it went like that until I think now we have about 6 deans at Egerton University. I'm not saying I'm the one who did that, but I planted a bit of a seed. And the women who are elected went to do very well. As deans, and only one went to be appointed as a deputy vice chancellors. So sometimes it just really ends there. Or you are appointed to hold the office because there is no man, and when they find a man, then you are no longer part of that picture. So the struggle is real, actually, and there are many reasons for that. There is the fact that people don't want to, majority of colleagues don't want to elect women leaders, but there's also the other story of that is that most women don't want to put themselves out there. I remember a case of a woman who were trying to, just speak to take over deanship, and she said, "I can't do deanship when my husband is just a mere lecturer. I cannot be able to survive in that house." And that really struck me, that it's not it's not a walk in the park. There are just so many considerations for women. So to continue with the South African situation, a desktop review of public universities in South Africa reflects that within the position. Oh, okay. We need to take a break, and then we'll come back. So I'll just mark that.
You still have a couple of minutes. Finish what you're doing now. No
Okay.
need to worry.
All right. So I was just giving a bit of background in South Africa, which seems to be faring a little better than other universities in the continent. And I can share all that with Verena so that we don't spend so much money, because I have quite a bit to say. But there seems to be some sort of good news coming from South Africa. I don't know whether Verena will challenge me on that, but the statistics I have seem to point that South Africa is a little bit much better, partly because it seemed to me that the political leaders are in support of women leadership, and I got a bit of that data from South Africa. Even though I'm affiliated to quite a number of universities in South Africa, I haven't done research there. How many minutes do I still have?
Another 1 minute, and then we should go.
Okay. All right. So to cap on that is that there are both structural and non-structural issues. There is the fact that women are not able to access leadership situations or leadership positions because the culture is just not supportive for that. The prevailing culture in universities is not just toxic for women, even as academic, but also in leadership position. I do know a university right now that doesn't have a single woman. All the 4 vice chancellors are men, and there's one woman who is a director. And so there are all kinds of things, but it's not that all women are opposed to leadership appointments. It's that the level of playing field is just not that easy. And we'll get to that after the break. So we can go for the break, Verena.
I think we are all back. And I hope that we've had a good time in our breakout sessions. We will have a bit of a highlight session right at the end, just to draw out what was discussed in the groups. But Damaris, I would hand it back over to you for now for your next part.
Thank you, and welcome back. That was a refreshing break. So we've given data about women leadership in higher education, and there's one thing that we don't talk about, and that's education research. Women are generally missing also in the area of research that puts them at a disadvantage. So the African Education Research Database, which usually profiles African-led research, and which included female academics, found that out of 2,510 researchers in their database, only 32 are female. So we are also missing in research. So women are not only underrepresented in higher education leadership, but also in research, including funded research and publications. And that's also something that can stand in your way of attaining leadership, because if you are not doing research, if you are not visible, if you are not publishing in higher impact journals, as they call it, if you are not read, if you are not known, if you are not attracting funds, that also stands in your way of academic leadership. So there is need for us to begin to think about how do we build capacity for scholars female scholars in the continents to be visible, to be able to have funding exposure. And that I'm throwing that again to you, Verena, that as we think about women leadership in higher education, can we also begin to think about spaces for training scholars, young upcoming scholars on writing research and also writing grants? I am in a grant making institution right now, and I need all kinds of skills every single day to be able to attract money. And don't forget that there are also situations of your for me as an African woman placed in an extremely white society, there are those challenges that I encounter, that when it comes to research grants, a white man would get more money than I could ever bring. So we also need to be alive to that. There are also things that really stand on your way, not just research alone, but there are also, issues that we don't also find time to address. And that's the fact that even when women have arisen to full professor, they may still encounter workplace discrimination. And I'll give an example from a university I worked in. So there was this time that we had never had a female vice chancellor for so long in my local university. Some of you know that university. And then there are female professors who had risen through the ranks and had worked in that university for nearly 30 years, but they could not get leadership position. Then eventually we had one woman vice president, or vice chancellor, sorry. And she came into the office with a lot of opposition. First of all, she was called incompetent, even though she is the interview. And that's one thing that we grapple with every day. Women are told they are incompetent, they are unable to do their work, they don't have the right skills, even when you qualify just as much as those men or you beat them. And she came into the office with just so much stress and so much tension. We had to mobilize, the university to accept her leadership. And when they did eventually come around, immediately she settled into the office. It was a back and forth with the court. Oh, she's not qualified. Oh, she ate money. Oh, she did that. She's employing her people. She's doing that. Eventually that vice chancellor was hounded out of office. And I don't think I have ever overcome that. It's not that she was incompetent or all the accusations, but it's because she was a woman, and she was also an insider person who went through the university structures. And it just, that was one of the things that really shocked me. We had like up to 10 male vice chancellors who who went to school at the same university and grew through the ranks, but they didn't have that kind of challenge. The day we got the first female vice chancellor, it was hell on earth. So I'm saying that we have barriers that don't allow us even to reach to full professorship. But even when you reach there, you encounter so many other challenges that are just shocking. Another thing is that disciplinary differences can also influence women's access to leadership roles. And so you have women in STEM having more opportunities for growth and rising through the ladder, particularly women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, than you have women in the social sciences or in theological institutions like us. Fewer women deans and experiences means that women may not rise through the ranks because they lack managerial experience, and women deans often lose to men deans if they have to compete. And I think I had already said that. But there's also the issue of mobility and geographical location that can act as barriers for women or disadvantage women. And I give my own example. At my age, over 50, I carried my entire body across the Atlantic to come to America, left part of my family in Kenya, and came here with half the other family to do this work. How many women can make that kind of a sacrifice? But because I was so disillusioned with public education, university education in my own locality, in my own space, I just really didn't have it anymore to work there, the toxicity and everything. And I moved myself here, and I made such huge sacrifices. I am literally freezing in America to do this job, and it's a very difficult place to be in. But I made that sacrifice. But how many women are able to dislocate themselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in every way that you can think of, because you have an ambition to lead an institute that you think aligns with what you do. So some of us don't have that courage like I do, and I don't even advise people to do that. But for me, I no longer wanted to work in a public university. I wanted to go to a space that I could challenge myself and thrive. So mobility and geographical location really affect women. It's easier for men to pack their bags and go to do international jobs than it is easier for women. I'm not a man, I'm a woman, but I took that risk. I'm just saying that it's not as easy as we want to think about. But women also face women face location-specific obstacles like the ones that I have just mentioned. But I know we all know this, but let me just say that even as we speak about these challenges, there is just incredible research out there that suggest that women make some of the best leaders in the world, not just in academia, but in every sector that women have held. Here in America and across the global north, women leaders, let's just take the example of COVID, some of the best leaders during the COVID-19 pandemic were women. They led through empathy. Angela Merkel of Germany and the lady in New Zealand, I can't recall her name now, Arden or something. In countries where you had leaders who are women during such a global pandemic that killed millions of people, women emerged as the best leaders, and research seems to suggest it's because they lead with empathy. They are more collaborative. They are more, they have better listening skills. They lead with compassion. In all the kinds of qualities that I was speaking about at the beginning of this, but still, even though there's just very compelling research that women make some of the best leaders in academic institutions and in other areas because of their leadership styles, there's just still so much that there's just so much that's happening to stop them from attaining that level. And I've seen somebody write in the comment that Ethiopia had also a woman prime minister who did very well, and I appreciate that. Barbados prime minister or president also, rose into the occasion and led her country with just so much dignity and so much grace and so much compassion during a time that people really needed that. So there is evidence out there that lends itself to the fact that women actually really make good leaders when they are given that opportunity. Despite the gatekeeping, we all know that there are gatekeepers in academia and in every other area of life. We have proven ourselves. I don't want to get into the cultural challenges because we know them already. We have experienced them, all these barriers that we face. But I want to talk about a few of them and also just highlight my own experiences, either personal or colleagues that I know that we have all faced. Ethiopian Health Minister is a woman. Wonderful. And this is for African women. one of the biggest monsters that has stood in the way of African women rising to leadership in academia and in other domains and spheres of influence is the culture of ethnicity. It's just so heartbreaking to see women, capable women, unable to lead institutions or have no opportunity to lead when they qualify so highly for those positions because of just the toxic culture of ethnicity and corruption, which marginalizes women in all sectors and spheres of public life, including education. So story time. My experiences with the discrimination and personal reflections about ethnicity. I already shared that I come from an insignificant but also very significant ethnic group, and I don't like going into those impulses of ethnicities, but it's our reality, and it personally is my reality. And I just want to share a couple of experiences that I had. The experience that led me to leave was a painful experience. So I was ready for promotion to associate professor for a very long time. I had everything and more. I had actually everything for me to be a full professor. And we appeared for interviews after they had delayed us for like 4 years. We finally got to be interviewed. I remember waiting on the list from 9 a.m. on a Friday to 8 p.m. to be interviewed. I sat down from 8 a.m. I hadn't even had breakfast, waiting for other people to be interviewed first. Somehow they put me as the last person, but they expected me to be at the interview panel from 8 a.m. And I was there from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I was interviewed at 8 p.m. No lunch. There was tea and biscuits, no lunch, but nothing. And I appeared in the interview panel at exactly 8 p.m. I did very well in my interview. And I worked in that university, so I know the conversation is not even a rumor. But they wanted to stress me so that I failed the interview or whatever. There was just a lot of game that was going on there. I aced the interview. And later someone called me and said, we have been interviewing people the entire week, but you are the best of all the people that we interviewed in the entire week. But I still was not promoted to associate professor. Then I took the vice chancellor head on and wanted to know why I was not promoted, because I had everything. In the faculty shortlisting, I was the first and the only one that my name was forwarded to, in my department, was forwarded for, as qualified for that position. So they denied me that. So when I took the vice chancellor to ask, why, what happened, I need to know why I was not promoted, nobody could give me a straight answer. But the same vice chancellor started treating me so badly and fought me left, right, center that I had to leave. And I left because I chose to fight for my right. Another university asked for my CV. I won't say which one it is. As for my CV, the council, the Senate, and the faculty sat through and said, this is for full professor. This CV is for full professor. And I was appointed as a professor. I'm sharing that story to say, later on, I came to discover that one of the things that led to that situation was my ethnicity, but also that somebody felt like I could apply for the position of a deputy vice chancellor and they didn't want me there. I see the hand again. Are we supposed to go for another break?
We are. We have another couple of minutes.
Okay. Then 2 more examples. So finally, so I'm a professor now, and I left the university that treated me so shoddily and so poorly. Another experience, and these are things I speak very comfortably about. My experience with the Kenyan government, this has nothing to do with academia, but my academic work really applied to the positions I applied with a couple of others. So I remember on 2 occasions I applied for 2 senior constitutional offices in Kenya. I was shortlisted, interviewed, and highly recommended, but I didn't get the 2 jobs because I was a nobody. I had no millions to bribe, but I also came from an insignificant tribe. And my MPs and governors and everybody who came for my graduation, remember the story, could not fight for me. But I do recall someone from a high office calling my vice chancellor to ask, who is this woman? She's a nobody, but her CV has spoken for herself. But we want to know, we want to find that, we want to find all kinds of things. They didn't find anything, but I didn't get the job. So one day I saw the president announcing the position, other people had been appointed. And I recall when I did this interview, the chair of the body, the chair of they call it the presidential panel. I'm mixing my words. I can't recall the special panel that does interviews for government. He asked me in the interview, and please, I'm not bragging. I'm just using my personal experiences to tell a story. He asked me, I won't say his name, but I had one of the most enjoyable interviews ever in my life. He asked me, does the president know that there is a Maasai woman with a PhD like you and all the work that you have done? I said, I don't know the president, but you can tell him that I'm here. And then I left, and somebody called me when I was leaving and said, you did us so proud from my community. We are so proud. Apparently they were monitoring. We are so proud. You are the best in the interview, and we are hoping that you'll get this position. I go home, I'm happy. I'm like, I probably might work with the government. And I really wanted to work there, not because I love the government, but because I knew I was going to change the lives of women if I got there. And one day I'm seated, after 2 weeks, I see the president announcing the names of the people who are selected. And I do recall one of the people who was appointed, when he came in to where we were all seated, he was so panicky, and then he started telling us, I don't have KRA clearance, that's the tax body. I don't have this other clearance. I don't have this other clearance. He was panicking. All his papers were all over the floor. He started making all of us panic. But that was the guy who got the position. And he had a very bad corruption case. He got the position. So ethnicity, corruption, and racism in areas like South Africa, and of course, depending on your location as an African woman, you will always face that. I can't tell you the kind of racism that I have experienced in this part of the country. So I wanted to share that before we go for the break, that there's the culture of corruption, there's also the culture of ethnicity that stands in our way, but there's also the culture of sex, women and sex, that I do recall somebody asked me, do you have 1.5 million Kenyan shillings that you can bribe for you to be considered in this position? I said, even if I had 20 million, I wasn't going to pay even 10 shillings for me to get this position. So give it to those who can do that. Somebody told me that you can also see so-and-so privately. Of course, I knew what that meant. And those positions just went like that because I was not a compromisable candidate. I just wanted to share that. It's intimate, it's scary, it's risky, but I wanted just to demonstrate through my own personal experiences just the most unimaginable things that women go through to try to rise to leadership that they have qualified for. Okay, do we need a break?
Damaris, thank you so much for sharing your testimony. I know that must have been very courageous to do. It's not easy to share these life stories. Thank you for letting us take part in that. Yes, we are ready for a break. Breakout rooms are ready. Yeah, welcome back. I hope that you had a good breakout session and discussion. We have 2-3 minutes to maybe just a couple of people to share a highlight from your group. If you raise your hand, then we can see that you want to speak. Yeah, please go ahead. Faustina, please go ahead and share.
So please, are we sharing the first group discussion or the second, or we can put together both?
Any of them, right. Whatever stuck out for you.
Okay, so the first one we looked at self-motivation, and then self-awareness. And then another person was also talking about being mindful, practicing the mindfulness, and then self-care. It's what really came out. And then the second one was very, very interesting because we saw resilience, we saw perseverance, and self-motivation came out throughout everyone. Since all of us in our discussion, we saw self-motivation and then inner calling. There must be an evidence of a call before we can begin to act on it, because there were so many challenges. There are so many challenges that women are going through. And so without having an inner calling, just believe that it becomes so impossible. And then also we saw positive talks. We speak to ourselves positively. It's also another means of encouraging ourselves and motivating us as women. And then another person also said that seeing other women climbing in the academic ladder also helped. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faustina, for sharing. Can I invite Annie to share?
In our group, some of it she's already said, but the main thing is just to encourage each other as women. And even the men, we had a man in our group and he was so encouraging that there's that support. Again, we said collaborations with other institutions can be something we can seek to do, undertaking studies, developing self-confidence, and just knowing that God will help us if we leverage our spirituality, that good relationship with God, and then embracing and building each other as women. And one said, in the learning process, we need to love our environment, love our community, and also love our own professions. So really, there's so much in us, ourselves as women. And we thank God for the mentors and those who have just spoken. Damaris is just one of those who we have really admired her strength. And that is so much for others I know who are in the group that have mentored us to be what we are. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Annie, for sharing. Last one, Helena, feel free to share.
Yeah, among the other things that have been discussed, we were talking about excellence being our hallmark, and then we build resilience, we return to ourselves and enjoy our identity in Christ and allow Christ to lead us wherever we are.
Thank you so much, Helena. Damaris, do you have any concluding thoughts or remarks? You're muted, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, and I know we left somewhere before I said something that I wanted to say before I get to the remarks, that in all my experiences in Kenya, everything I've ever applied for abroad, everything I ever applied for, I got, because it's a situation of merit. It's a situation of, and that was really just amazing for me to learn. And to give me confidence that I'm not the problem. So I just wanted to put it out there. So the things I applied for in Kenya, I didn't get the things I applied abroad, where I don't know anybody. It's such a serious process. It's such, my current position, I was interviewed for a year, and I tell people that and they don't believe me. It took me a whole year to get this position. Anyway, in concluding remarks, I wanted to speak about just building resilience and anchoring ourselves in faith, values, and inner strength. And two things that I want to share is how women can build social capital. We need to come together, build social capital with people around you, with colleagues who you have similar interests, with people outside of your country or your region who have similar interests. Let's build social capital, because social capital is just so important, and such an anchor for us to be able to succeed. Again, academia is not a lone job. It's lonely when you are writing alone, but you need so many people for you to be able to succeed. So create social capital for yourself, but more importantly, build experience capital. That's the new buzzword in this part of the world. For you to be able to rise to any position of leadership, you need experience capital. Start working as, as a chair of a department. Start working as, in a committee, volunteer, do all kinds of things. Put yourself out there, be visible, be seen, everywhere. Just be actively involved in your local community, in your church community, in your work community. Be seen out there. And invest in a sisterhood. One of probably my biggest strengths in life. And, I recognize God is involved in everything that I do. He is my best buddy, my best friend, the person, the one who holds all things constant for me. But one of the things that has helped me to thrive is that I have such a beautiful sisterhood. I have had friends for the last 30 years. Some women who are older than me, they held me in every situation I have been through. They have celebrated with me. They have cried with me. They have held me. And, I dedicate Saturdays afternoon here to be able to speak to them every single day. Despite, all we have 9-hour differences between Kenya and where I am, I speak with them every Saturday. We used to do thermoses of tea, on a couch, one of the houses, just lying down. It's just really been so real to me and grounding, and we pray together, we sing together, we share all kinds of things together. That sisterhood has been amazing. When I came here, I've been trying to create a sisterhood around food. Selling my culture, cooking Kenyan dishes and inviting colleagues for prayers and to understand my culture, where I come from, the foods that we eat. And it's been really amazing building allies like that. And women, you need to build allies in academia too, in wherever you are planted, build allies, go out there, invite people, talk to them, let them invite you, and grow together. There's just so much you can learn from someone every single day, irrespective of who they are. Open up your mind to be able to accept and to be embracing and to be adaptable and to be someone in a constant state of learning and adaptation and unlearning and that sort of thing. So that's what I will say.